You ready? Or is it okay? Start? Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Parenting with a Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janelle. And you know we are here every Thursday weekly. And the aim is to bring back the responsibility, nobility back into parenting. Parenting comes with different genders, different races, all shapes and sizes. Young, old, middle age, whatever. Grandparents are parenting. Great grandparents are raising some children. So however you slice it, parenting, and that's what this show is about. It's just being having parents be accountable for what's going on with our children, and providing some tools and techniques and some other things that help parenting along the way. We know that there is not a book for parenting. You know, we are pretty much doing either how our parents raised us or how somebody told us how to raise our children or what we think is best for our children. And we don't always get it right. I don't always get it right. We don't always get it right. But one thing for sure is that we do love our children and that we're parenting them. Tonight, my guest tonight is we're going to be talking about parenting while surviving breast cancer. 1 out of 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer, and 287,000 women will be diagnosed in 1 year alone with breast cancer. Breast cancer is the most common cancer among them all globally, not just here in the U.S., but this is a global issue of breast cancer. And the stat shows that over 42,000 women die a year with breast cancer. But we are here with a survivor. We have Leslie here on our show. Welcome back, Leslie.
Welcome back.
Welcome to the show. We had a little bit technical difficulties, but
Yes.
We are here now.
We are absolutely here again.
I have Leslie on the show because Leslie was diagnosed with breast cancer. She is a breast cancer survivor. She is in remission, and she has a child. So we want to know, Leslie, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then you're gonna break down to us your whole journey regarding this breast cancer.
For the people that were on the original live, for the people that weren't on the original live, I'm 41. I have a almost 8-year-old daughter. I live in Delaware. I work for State Rep Carol Kazim's office. I'm also a part of CMP Radio. So here I am.
Okay, so tell us, I know we feel like we're just repeating this again, but for those who was not able to see the first 11 minutes before we had some technical difficulties, tell us your story about how you found out and what was going on there.
So in December of 2020, December 18th of 2020, I went to the doctors with my sister, and they told her that she was diagnosed with breast cancer. 2 weeks later, I went down to my parents' house, and, I was doing, talking to my mom. I did a little self-exam, asking her, like, how do you do it, stuff like that, and I found a lump. My mom was kind of in denial. She was like, no, you didn't find a lump. I'm like, yes, Mom, I have a lump. And then she felt on one side, felt on the other side, told me to call my doctor.
And that was your first breast exam, because before you were saying that you've never even did a breast exam prior to your sister being diagnosed.
Not at all.
What was the reason why you did?
Because I had an A1/2 cup. I didn't think no cancer can live in these little bitties.
And that's the most common misconception about breast cancer, is that a lot of females who are, as you say, A1/2 B cup, who aren't well as Dow as some others, think that breast cancer would not get to them, because where's it going to go? Like, it is nothing there. So when you're thinking, that's how most women think who are not large in that area.
Absolutely. And one thing I didn't say in the first live was my grandfather. My mom's dad, he actually had breast cancer. Men can actually get breast cancer. It can sit in their chest wall or their breast tissue as well. And his cancer, when they went to remove it, it moved to his stomach, and he passed away from stomach cancer.
Wait,
my mother's dad.
Your grandfather had breast cancer?
Yes.
Okay. Your sister get diagnosed with breast cancer. 2 weeks later, you find a lump.
Yes.
All right. So, wow.
Yeah. So my mom was only 13 then, so I never met my grandfather. But, later on, as we got older, she told us the story about what happened to him. But anyway, so I called my doctor the next day after I found my lump. They made me wait in quarantine because it was around the COVID time. So the beginning of 2021, they made me wait 2 weeks because I was out of town. You have to quarantine, So they made me quarantine. I went to the doctors around January 15-ish. And then after my doctor checked me, because like I said in the first one, they don't want to check you. They don't want to give you a mammogram before you're 40, actually before 45.
Right.
So they don't want to give you a mammogram for whatever reason. People are being diagnosed younger than I was.
Right.
So I don't know why they do that, but they scheduled my mammogram like a week and a half later on January 26th. Then they scheduled me for my biopsy, and I forgot about my ultrasound. I actually had a panic attack when they were doing, because they scheduled me for biopsy MRIs,
right?
So where they slide you in the machine, and I had a whole panic attack in the machine.
Right.
I was like crying, but what they tell you is if you move, or if they have to pull you out, they have to start the exam all over again. So I just laid in the machine and just cried the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah. So they did that, and then that's when they scheduled me for my biopsies and for my regular biopsies and my ultrasound. And then on February 3rd, and then February 4th was my birthday.
Right.
And then my doctor called me on February 5th and told me I had cancer.
Right. So we're going to put a flag on the plate for a second right there, because I think most people don't realize the side effects of COVID because the fact that you find a lump on your breast, you contact your doctor, and they're like, well, you got to wait 2 weeks before we can even see you because COVID is running rampant out here. So you have to quarantine. Okay. That's a little nerve-wracking, but okay, I see everybody want to be safe instead of just throwing a mask on you and say, come on and see what we got to do. Okay. Because I think at that point we were about a year into COVID even without it really being a year, because I think COVID was officially March of 2020. But so then, all right, you go to the doctors, you see the doctor, they do the exam. And like you said, before 40, the age 40, they don't really like to schedule you for a mammogram. They want to examine you. So they bring you for exam, and he does the exam, and you get scheduled for a mammogram.
Yes.
Mammogram still had to wait another week and a half for a mammogram. So now we're going 3.5 weeks without knowing what exactly is going on. You just know you found a lump in your breast during your first breast exam ever. Your sister just got diagnosed with breast cancer. Okay. Wow, that's a lot to try to take in of, and in the middle of COVID.
Yes.
So then you get the MRI, ultrasound, biopsy, all that stuff the day before your birthday.
Yeah.
So then you're waiting around. So you said during your birthday, though, you were kind of just laying around. You really wasn't up to it. You wasn't sure exactly what was going on. You didn't want to be around your daughter because were you sad, or what were you? Like,
I was nervous. I was sad. I was worried because I'm like, if you think about it, right? Cancer has no face. You can't tell how far along you are. You don't know if you're going to survive. So in my mind, I was like, I don't know if I have cancer. But the way that they were checking me, I think they're gonna call me and tell me that I have cancer. So on my birthday, I laid around. I didn't want to be around my daughter. I didn't want to be all sad and stuff like that. And like I said before, I just was one of those moms. I didn't want to be super emotional around my daughter because they feed off of that. I didn't want her upset or wondering why mommy's sad. So, I just stayed to myself that day on the day of my birthday, which was on a Thursday. And then my doctor called me that Friday and was like, hey, are you sitting down? And I'm like,
well, just tell me what you got to tell me.
Exactly.
That is so crazy because we're so used to, you get a phone call, they're like, come in the office. They don't normally tell the person that they have breast cancer or any type of cancer over the phone. But I think because of what's going on with COVID, it was like less office appointments as possible. Like, that's a little different.
Yeah. So what they did was she told me that I had cancer, and then she scheduled me an appointment with her for a week later, which was the next Friday. So of course now I'm in my head like, what is going on? What is it? So thank goodness for Christiana Portal. I went on the portal and I was just reading the notes.
Okay.
From the mammogram, reading the notes from what my doctor called me and told me. And I was like, okay, all right. So it didn't go to my lymph node, okay. So I kind of mentally prepared myself for my appointment for that next week.
Right, but we're a month out of you finding a lump. When you like, I'm doing the math here. We're a month out when you finding a lump. 6 weeks out from when your sister was diagnosed, and you're basically waiting another week to go in and have the conversation. I mean, I guess what more was the conversation was going to be about after she already told you on the phone you got breast cancer.
Yeah. So the next appointment was just about what were the next steps. Letting me know that it didn't move to my lymph node. It was just in my left breast. My options, they give you the option if you want to do a lumpectomy, or if you want to have the mastectomy.
Right.
And for me, my sister had just had her genetic testing done, and she tested positive for BRCA1, which is a genetic mutation that carries breast cancer, ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer, and prostate cancer.
Okay.
So when my doctor talked to me and asked me, I told him, that my sister had just tested positive for that. And I was like, I'll do my genetic testing. I said, but you can have my breast. Like, I need to be here for my daughter. I was like, I never had breasts anyway. So I was in the doctor's office like, anybody that knows me.
You said you can have my breasts.
I said you can take them. I didn't have any anyway.
It was like 8.5. I mean, you want that? You can have it.
I was like, you can take them. And so the thing for me was when she was telling me, I was like, well, listen, if y'all gonna take my breast though, I want to at least do the nipple sparing, which is where they take your tissue but they leave your nipples.
Right.
And I was like, and I'll pick me out a nice fresh pair of implants and go about my business. So literally the doctor was looking at me like I love your, but of course that was me just, telling myself, okay, you're going to be all right.
Right.
Just trying to keep the sense of humor to not get in my head about it.
Right. Because most people getting diagnosed with cancer, most people are like, it's devastating. It's like, cancer is one of those illnesses, diseases that you don't know the outcome. You don't know until you go do more research and biopsies and things like that to be able to stage it and things like that. So when you first hear cancer, because there's so many people die of cancer,
Absolutely.
like most people are fearful, they're crying because it's such uncertainty. So the fact that you had a little humor in it, it makes sense. Like, listen, I'm not going to be defeated by it, but listen, let me pick out some implants. Let me do some stuff. And I think that's so important because keeping a positive mindset whenever you go through anything traumatic or any trauma in your life, it really helps you get through each step.
Absolutely. And I cried the Friday when she first told me, because then it's like, okay, now I have to call everybody and deliver the news that I have cancer also. So me and my sister and my brother have the same mom, same dad. So that means that their two daughters are now battling cancer at the same time.
Wow.
So you don't know if you're going to lose one of us, if you're going to lose both of us, So having to deliver that to my mom and my dad was like, for me, was like,
that's almost like you want to keep it from them, right? Like that's like almost the hardest part. Like you have a sister who's going through it now. You have parents, and you just like, what? It's almost like you don't really want to say nothing, right?
I felt like that, but then it's like, I don't want to go through it by myself. You know, I don't want to keep them in the dark and then something happens to me and they're not prepared for it.
Right.
You know, so that's just one of those things that you just have to understand, and you yourself have to just be like, hey, I'm not going to sit in this. Let me just keep going.
When you found out that once the official results came in, you found out it was breast cancer, as a mom, what were you thinking? Like, what came to your mind? Like,
How am I going to tell my daughter if I'm going to have to do chemo? How is she going to take me losing my hair? You know, all of those things that, you know, of course I made jokes about my breasts, but it's like all of the things that make you feel like a woman and look like a woman. You know, cancer is one of them things that, you know, it takes all of that away from you.
right.
You know, it takes your hair away. You know, if you're one of those people that you know, worships your hair and takes care of your hair, you lose your hair. You know, losing your breasts. You know,
Right.
not knowing what other changes your body is going to go through. So that was the thing that was in my head. And then, you know, is she going to understand?
Right.
How am I going to get her to understand what I'm going through? So, of course, Amazon is like the best place ever. I'm Googling, you know, I'm all on Amazon and I'm just like, okay, breast cancer books. Okay, breast cancer books for a child. And I came across this book it was a little black girl. You know, I needed for my daughter to see somebody that looks like her.
Right.
And then, not that the woman was curvy in the picture. So, of course, she didn't look just like me, the mom. But, you know, she was a black mom. And it was okay, mommy, I'll help you. How to tell your child that you have breast cancer.
Wow.
And at the time, my daughter, I mean, she could read her sight words and stuff like that. So the bigger words she didn't understand or she couldn't read. But I made her read the book to me, and then the words that she didn't understand, I read them for her.
Okay. I think that is, I'm going to pause there because a lot of times we as parents, we as moms, we withhold information from our children because we feel like they're not going to be able to handle it. Primarily because we can't really handle it too well ourselves.
Absolutely.
But we don't want to, I don't know, like, we don't want to tell our kids for whatever reason. I remember when I got diagnosed with lymphoma, right? And I didn't even tell my daughter. Like, I didn't really tell her. I was going through stuff myself and I kind of really didn't tell many people, though. Not even just my daughter. Like, my family didn't know until, I had to get a major surgery, which was a radical neck dissection. That's when I kind of was telling people. But prior to that, the other stuff, I ain't say nothing to nobody. And I don't know. For me, it was just I just didn't want to be a burden on anybody. But a lot of children say that they wish their parent was more open with them and told them and gave them an opportunity to respond how they want to respond. When we don't talk to our children, whatever age level they're at, we take that away from them.
Absolutely.
We take their chance to respond however they want. It's almost like a control thing.
Yep.
Which none of us really want to. I do want to control my kids sometimes because they be cutting out. But, like, you really don't want to control anybody or anything. And when we take that choice or that chance to respond, it hurts them.
Absolutely. And you just never know what's going to happen. So for me, it was like, I can't keep her in the dark because then what if something happens to me? You know, so that was the thing for me. It was just like, you know, I have to tell her. And that was my way of telling her. And then, you know, she asked her little question. She was like, oh, mommy, you're going to look like this. And I was like, well, you know, if mommy has to, because it had everything about chemotherapy in it and everything.
Wow.
So, you know, mommy losing her hair, you know, she was like, mommy, are you going to lose your hair? And I was like, I don't know. I said, but there's a possibility that I may have to.
Right.
You know, so After that, I told my doctor, I went to see the breast surgeon, was talking to the breast surgeon. They told me I couldn't do nipple sparing. So I, was kind of crushed about that because then I'm like, okay, so you're taking my breasts. There's a possibility you might have to take my hair and you're going to take my nipples too.
Right. Yeah, say it like that, but yeah.
Like, wait a minute,
Right. Oh, I think that's so important because you said early on, you said that pretty much everything that we know as a woman to be, even if you're not so obsessed with your hair, you're a woman, so you know that hair is a part of it, and you see hair, and we cherish our hair, we love our hair,
Absolutely.
and then they're telling you you're not even gonna have any breasts and not any nipples, like pretty much everything, like you said, that kind of makes us externally a woman, right?
Yep.
Externally, what people will see, what people will say. Wow. Go ahead. How did your daughter respond once you told her that you had cancer? You read the book. She asked her questions, and then she was just okay, or how?
I think she was okay because again she was 5.
Right.
So although she asked questions, it wasn't like an emotion behind the question. She was just like, you're gonna lose your hair, and yeah. So, but that was the easiest way that I thought that I could tell my daughter. See, my sister, her kids are older, so they're I guess at the time they were 23, 22, and then her youngest was like 16. So they were older, and so she told them,
Right.
and it was not saying that it was easier for them,
Right.
because of course that's their mom, but trying to explain it to a 5-year-old, what if something would have happened to me, now she's looking at pictures and then not really fully understanding, but just just seeing, okay, mommy went through what I seen in that book.
Right. Okay. I think that's good that you were able to relate that because a lot of times, again, we run away from situations like that. We don't really want to tell nobody. And then something happens, you're like, whoa. So you do all right. So then you go, you have the surgery.
Yes. So May 10th, I had my surgery. So Mother's Day weekend, I had to quarantine. Yeah. So they made me get tested for COVID 3 days before surgery. So then I had to quarantine Mother's Day weekend. And then I went in that Monday morning to have my surgery, to have my breast removed.
So we from December all the way to May now, Leslie. So what's part of that delay because of COVID? We know like getting in and everything to be seen. And this wasn't considered an elective surgery. Because remember, they canceled all the elective surgeries. There was nobody really doing surgery. It was literally like emergent surgeries. And you still had to wait till May.
Yep. It was May because in between there, I had to go and see the breast surgeon a few times. I did my genetic testing. I had to go and see the plastic surgeon a few times. They had to take pictures of, my original breasts and, do all that and, kind of just preparing themselves for the surgery and what they needed to remove. What lymph nodes and stuff they needed to remove. So it was a lot of prep in between there.
Right.
So there was constant appointments between February and me having my surgery in May.
Wow. And some people think that, all right, you get diagnosed with cancer, they take you in right away, they can do everything they got to do. But breast cancer is a little bit different because it requires plastics, it requires a multidisciplinary team.
Absolutely. And they all are literally in the operating room and chasing behind each other. So, you have your breast surgeon that's removing your breast tissue. Then the plastic surgeon is coming behind them and, doing the things that the plastic surgeon needs to do to get you sealed all up and putting your drains in and everything else.
Now, who took care of your daughter while you were going through like this process?
Her dad, and my mom was there.
Wow. And so what part was your sister in? What stage, like where was she at in her treatment before you started to get?
So she was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, which is a more aggressive breast cancer.
Right.
So her treatment was a little different from mine. Hers did travel to her lymph node. It was on the right side. So she had to do chemo immediately.
Okay.
So they scheduled her chemo 4 weeks after her diagnosis. So she started chemo. And so she was like in between. I know she ended up getting COVID, so she was in the hospital in between doing chemo. So they had to stop her chemo for like 3 weeks. So in between me going to the doctors and stuff, I was like, going over to the hospital to check on
Right.
my sister. She was at Riddle. And all of my stuff was done at Christiana. So I literally was going to check on her. My mom was up here, so she was helping with my daughter, and then helping my sister at her house. At her place and stuff. Right. So literally, my mom was bouncing from house to house.
Wow.
She stayed up here from January until probably like sometime in the middle of February or close to the end of February. And then she left and then came back when I was having surgery.
Wow. So, I as a mom, when you go through something like this, like, did you have any doubt or any fear that you weren't going to beat this, or you weren't going to be able to see your daughter again, and she wasn't going to be there with her mom? Like, did you have, in the midst of all this, because there's a lot going on at this time. A lot for you, a lot for your family, with your sister. But did you, in your mind, think like, what the outcome is going to be?
I didn't give myself a chance to think about it. I literally, my breast surgeon said one thing to me. She said, you have to continue to do the things that you were doing prior to your diagnosis, because the diagnosis will kill you faster than, the stress will kill you faster than the diagnosis.
Wow, that's powerful right there. A lot of times, and that's true with any disease. Like, when you think about diseases, a lot of times the stress, and we have these hormones in our brain, the cortisol and all these other hormones that aid to the diagnosis. Whatever you're dealing with, your body starts to remember that and start thinking about it. So the more stress you under, the more you will make the situation worse, honestly. And it doesn't benefit you because your mind is going crazy, the diagnosis is going crazy, and everything is out of control.
Absolutely. And I literally was running. I was working. I was still working at this trucking company that I was working with at down by Kimberly Clark. I was working there every day. I was still at the radio station, so I was at the radio station every single day. So I would go to my doctor's appointments, come right back up here to CMP and do the things that I was doing here. And literally my life didn't stop. I still was a mom. I still, was taking care of my house and, still had to, hustle and bustle, make my money.
Okay, so I started to make my money. So let me ask you a question. Because we as moms, we're considered superheroes, right? We can do it all, And was there a point where you had to slow down though and say, listen?
I didn't slow down at all.
You just kept going.
I kept going. The only time that I sat down was when I had my surgery. And I only sat down for probably like 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And then I still had my drains in and everything, and I was out the door.
So were you doing that to avoid the fact that to deal with it, or you was really
Absolutely.
I can't even get it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Being used to running and doing everything,
right.
And then having to stay in your bed. You can't drive, they didn't want you to drive because they didn't want a chance, you yanking out a drain or something. Right. But in hindsight, I probably should have sat still because 8 weeks after my original surgery, I ended up getting an infection. Mm-hmm. I was home and I woke up in the morning and it's June. It was June 23rd, 24th. So it's hot. I woke up, I was hot but shivering.
Oh, wow.
So I knew I had a fever, but I didn't have a thermometer to check. They didn't want me, the I called the plastic surgeon's office, and they were like, we don't want you to go to the ER. Just wait until, your doctor is in the office. So around 3 o'clock, come here.
Right.
So I get up around noon, and I'm just like, I'm tired of feeling like this. I took a 800 milligram ibuprofen. So when I got to the doctor's, the fever was breaking.
Right.
When I tell you, like, I was sweating and was like fainting literally in the lobby. I went to the back. The doctors are talking to me, and they're like, what's wrong? And what my doctor said to me was, she said, and she's telling me all the time because I still have to go to my appointments.
Right.
She was like, literally, you were leaning forward, and we're pushing you back, and you're leaning forward. My sugar dropped, my blood pressure dropped. I passed out in the office.
Yeah.
So they had to call 911. I was at the Helen Graham Center. They had to call 911, get an ambulance to come over to the Helen Graham Center and rush me to Christiana Hospital, which was across the parking lot.
Right. So, do you attribute that to you not sitting down?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was just doing all the wrong things.
See, here's the thing about us moms, and I'm gonna say this because I deal with this all the time. I consider myself a mom who just keep it moving, right? Mm-hmm. I've been diagnosed with so many different things, and I literally never really sat down. The only thing that set me down last was in 2020 when I had 3 strokes, and I was paralyzed completely on my left side. Wow. Prior to that, the breast biopsy, the lymphoma, all the other things in my life that has happened to me never set me down. I just kept, I think sometimes we think that we're Energizer bunnies. We keep going. Mm-hmm. But I'm learning, I've learned after the strokes, when you have to sit down and you think about some things. But I'm learning also that we don't have to be everything to everybody.
Absolutely.
We don't have to keep it moving. Because what happens is, like what you're saying, it's like, it set you back for a minute.
Yep.
Because you were avoiding the situation and just kept doing what you need to do. And in hindsight, like now you look like, so you had to go back in the hospital.
Absolutely. I had to have emergency surgery the very next day. They went back in. They took they put these tissue expanders in to stretch your skin back out so that they can put your implants in. Right. They had to take mine out and keep them out because then they had just told me that I had to do chemo.
Wow.
So like maybe 2 weeks before that happened, they told me I had to do chemo. Originally, they were saying that I wasn't going to have to do chemo because they caught it so early.
Right.
That, some people don't have to do chemo at all. When it's caught that early, they just put you on like a pill and pretty much you be on that pill, especially being as though I had already had both of my breasts removed. Mm-hmm. But when my oncotype came back, and it came back at 37%, or like 30, it was like 34, 37%, and they don't want it to be over 24 or 25%. They told me I had to do chemo. So they told me I had to do 16 rounds of chemo. Yeah. So the emergency surgery set me back because I was originally supposed to start chemo 4th of July. It was like the week of 4th of July.
Right.
So having the emergency surgery, that means they had to take the drains out, put 4 drains back in. And then I had to go through the process of the drains, draining all the fluid and stuff. Yeah. So, yep. Yeah, I did that. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that got me was I was rinsing out my drains because I hated the smell of the fluid that was coming out. And I ended up getting an infection from the water. It was some type of water it was something in the water that went into my body and was pushing out green fluid from my drains. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. So essentially you basically had to do everything over again. You had to start from fresh again.
Yep.
Because you couldn't sit down.
No.
Okay. So what would you say? So you did the chemo. You had to do 16 rounds of chemo?
Yes. I actually started chemo on my daughter's birthday. July 22nd, I had to do my first round of chemo.
Wait, flag on the play.
Yep.
You got too many flags right now.
Yeah.
It's late. So, how did you feel about that doing it on your daughter's birthday? Like, okay, let's start, or did you say, wait, it's my
No,
daughter's
I was trying to get them to wait. They said we can't wait any longer. Like, we can't push it back any longer. You have to start. I had paid for a trip to Disney for me and her to go. I had to cancel the trip. We couldn't go. And then when I found out I had to start chemo on her birthday, I'm like, and I'm one of those moms that's like, hey, we got to do something every year for your birthday.
Right.
Even though her dad is against it. But, for me, I was like, okay, what am I going to do to kind of not make her feel like her birthday isn't important?
Right.
So the Monday before her birthday, I took her to Candytopia.
Okay.
And then the Wednesday before her birthday, I took her to the Please Touch Museum.
Okay.
And then I started chemo on her birthday.
Well, I think that's so important because you didn't want to just act like her birthday didn't exist, and you don't want her to have a memory of her birthday of you starting chemo either.
Absolutely.
Like, that's a lot. I like how you knew this was coming up, so you pre-planned it. So when you started chemo, what did she think? I mean, she still was so young. Like, well, my 6-year-old, she asked a million questions when she was 6 years old. So I can't imagine, was your daughter asking a lot of questions like when you started chemo, or she just was going with the flow?
So my very first round of chemo, I did chemo that day, and then I slept for an hour after chemo in the chair, and then I drove up here.
See, I'm laughing because you sound like me, like things that I've done. I mean, I've driven myself to the hospital for surgery. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But as a mom, we kind of keep it going. So you did chemo. So you're about, 3 years out your remission? Two.
2. Well, actually, just a year and a half. They didn't tell me I was cancer-free until April of last year.
April of last year. So you're about 18 months out.
Yes.
Wow. Well, congratulations for being in remission.
Thank you.
So how often do you have to... Wait, pause. Let's go back. Did you get your daughter any, counseling or anything like that?
And no. So I started chemo in July. I finished December 9th. I rang the bell. So it literally extended over months. For me, I feel like now, because she's seen me go through, I did 6 surgeries in 2 years. So I had to have a full hysterectomy because of the genetic testing. So the ovarian cancer, there's no way of detecting ovarian cancer, which is why a lot of women, when they're diagnosed with ovarian cancer, they're already at stage 3, stage 4.
Right.
So I had my hysterectomy last year in August. I think from her seeing my hair fall out and me being bald, and then seeing me go through the surgeries, the mini surgeries, I restarted. Seeing the mini surgeries and stuff like that, I think now I can tell by how clingy she is that she calls me at random times. It's just like, Mommy, are you okay? I'm worried about you. Are you sure? Those calls are heartbreaking as a mom,
right?
Because then it goes back to what I said originally. I didn't want her to see me like that,
right? For
her to worry like that, but then, by, everybody saying, hey, you have to let her see you. But now I think it's time for me to get her therapy.
I think definitely, because again, grief is not just because of death. A lot of people think that grieving situations is death. No, if you're old enough to love, you're old enough to grieve. And there are situations, circumstances that, grief is a loss or a change, a shift in something. And as you grow, kids view grief differently than adults. And as they grow, grief changes with age.
Absolutely.
Right? So when she was younger, she might have had just one thought. And then, like you said, you've had 6 surgeries in 2 years. So kids know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether we try to hide it from them, whatever, kids know. And I think it's so important for you to start with her early right now because she's only 8, so that she doesn't have to deal with it when she's older. She knows exactly, how to handle these different emotions and stuff. Because statistically, when kids go through grief or trauma, the outcomes are, if they don't get counseling, if they don't have somebody to reach out to talk to really about their deepest, darkest feelings, like they get into crime, they start acting out, they're like 16. Well, what happened? Well, when I was little, I remember this happened. And it doesn't come out until that later. So I think it's so important as parents, we need to understand that our kids still need help too. Absolutely. Just as much. Did you get counseling?
So I went to therapy a little bit, but I just felt like it was just so much going on at the time, my house dynamic was changing, there was a lot of things going on. So literally, I did therapy a little bit, but I kind of just backed out a little bit. I felt like I was okay. Yeah, I know you're giving me the mom look,
because that's what we do. We think that we're okay. Like, I think that as moms, like, transparently, like, we think that we're supposed to be the sacrifice for everything. Like, absolutely. I'm not the sacrifice. So even when we go through things, we think that we want to not have others be burdened by it or worry about it or anything. Like, we're going to take it all in. We're going to take it all on. And internally, it kills us.
Absolutely.
Internally, like, we're losing our mind and we're trying to keep it all together for the sake of someone else. But if you don't have it together for yourself, you can't be good to no one else.
Yep.
The old saying that you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yep.
We're supposed to fill ourselves up so full that we have overflow into a saucer and that we're giving from the saucer. But as moms, it's so hard to not give yourself to everyone. Absolutely. Even when you're going through, as you're talking about it here, and I can relate so much because different diagnoses I had, and I've come to the conclusion recently, like, I am not the sacrifice. But like, God, like, we have somebody that sacrificed for us. Why do we as moms think that we have to have it all together?
Because men can't do it without us. And I know they're going to be upset that I said that. But naturally, we're just geared that way. We're geared to go. We're geared to protect. We're geared to nurture. Mm-hmm. And that's the mom in us. We want to shield our kids from as much as possible. But we also want to show our kids that, you can continue. You can keep going. Because you see mommy keep going. Right. Mommy's going. Mommy's moving, so, keep moving.
But so I've had a conversation with several men whose wives had different types of cancers or any health problems or even to death. And I asked them, like, why, about the mom being a superhero, because, we paint as a superhero. And a lot of men said that they didn't have the opportunity to step up because the mom, I got it all together. Absolutely. So a lot of men, if we allow them to, they can pick up some pieces. They can help with the situation. But I think it's something that's in us. It's like, no, I gotta know, I gotta do. But we don't.
I think the thing is we're afraid of them not being able to pick up and not being able to meet us where we are. Mm-hmm. So that's why we keep going. Because we don't want our kids to miss a beat. We don't want our households to miss a beat. We don't want us to miss a beat. Right. So even for me going through chemo, I was going to chemo on Thursdays and literally sleeping an hour in chemo and then getting up and being on the go. Right. Like I didn't just have chemo. Okay. I would be up here, people would be like, you don't want to go home and lay down or something?
I remember when I had chemo, I had the pills or whatever, and then I did have to go in for a couple of transfusions. And I went to work after treatment. I did. But what would you tell? Because I think I want to dismantle this whole superhero, super mom thing for people. Like, I know that we need to get it done, but at the same time, we really need to pull on our villages, people that are in our village or our significant other to really help with this, because we will get burnt out. You will get an infection and have to do this thing over again.
All over again.
So what would you tell a mom who's diagnosed with breast cancer, right? How I got a couple questions for you to just talk about before we close out. What would you tell a mom that's been diagnosed with breast cancer? Encourage them to keep moving, but also take time for themselves.
Absolutely.
And how to talk to their children about it. The show is yours now.
So what I would tell a mom, and that was one of the things that I did on my social media, I was very, very transparent about what I was going through, to encourage the moms to go out, get, rally for yourself. But also understand that you do have a village around you. I did have my mom, and, my daughter did go to North Carolina and stuff like that. But then she was in school too. So I still had to make sure she got to school and stuff like that while my parents were down there. But, open your mouth, say something. Right. Don't be afraid to say something, because you'll be surprised at how many people would help. I had people that called me, my friends would call me, and they would be like, Leslie, what do you need? What do you need? And I'm just like, oh, nothing, Or they would come over and they would be like, this is when I had surgery. They would come over and they're like, okay, well, do you want me to fix something to eat? Do you want me to make sure, Alyssa is good? Do you want me to clean up anything? And I'm like, they get there and I'm like, just keep me company. I got everything else.
Right.
I literally was going up and down the steps like 2 days after I came home. I was going up and down the steps. So listen to your body.
Right.
Listen to your body, because your body is going to tell you when it's time to give up, when it's time to not give up, but when it's time to sit down.
Right.
Your body will tell you. And my body told me in a different way. It told me kinda when it was too late, but not too late.
Your body was telling you, Leslie, you didn't listen. Let's keep it real. Listen to your body. Leslie said, listen to your body, because she ain't listening to hers. Okay, that's what the real deal. She did not listen to her body.
I didn't listen to it
until it was too late.
Until it was too late.
You shivering all over the place.
Yes, I literally was like, oh my gosh, am I about to check out? But I couldn't. I was just like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And, having the emergency surgery and watching my doctor sit there in my room in the hospital, and he cried. My doctor sat there and cried. Wow. He was just like, you're so young. You shouldn't be going through this. I'm so sorry that we had to do surgery on you again. Not in hindsight thinking like you shouldn't have been doing what you was doing. I would have been
like, listen, let me tell you why you got this, okay? Because I would not have been as nice to you.
Yes, but Dr. John literally sat there, and I thank him. He's been with me on my journey the whole time. I do have my original surgeon. She was a woman. But Dr. John is also in her office. Okay. And so he did some of my surgeries, and she did, some of them, or he was in the room with her too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you're a mom or dad, because we said breast cancer is in men, one of the things you really, really, really take serious is doing self-breast exams. Doing a self-breast exam is so important, because that's the difference between finding something early and finding something too late.
Yep.
And then when you find something you're not sure, get it checked out. Listen, it's better to get it checked out. It'll be nothing than don't get it checked out and you check out. Okay. So self-breast exams, do what they say. I literally stayed. I had my mammogram. I told you yesterday, and I really was due for a mammogram. Probably, I think back in 2018 was when I was due for another mammogram, because again, I had a breast mass removed, and I was supposed to get mammograms, but I didn't want them to find nothing else. So that is literally why I prayed it, and I said, listen, they ain't gonna find nothing. I ain't gonna give them nothing to find. So I stayed away, and it wasn't until yesterday that I had my mammogram, and I got the results today because of the portal, and they are benign. Oh, so good. I was like, all that hesitation, uncertainty because of my history of cancer and because I've had the mass, and again, they were squishing and pushing and all that. Nobody got time for that. So I'll say get checked out. And one of the things that you said is you was like a size 8.5, so she didn't think she had to get checked out. It doesn't matter what size your breasts are. Male and female must do a breast exam.
Absolutely.
You must. It is a necessity. So don't shy away from it. Just get it done. Fine. If anything happens, goes to the doctor. My daughter just did a breast exam Friday. My 17-year-old. We found a couple things in her breast, right? Called her doctor, checked her out, got checked out. So now she's going to get an ultrasound.
Yes.
We're not hiding. We're not running away. Now, she's young. It's probably some little cyst or something like that because, you know, young adults have very fibrous tissue. So it's really, a lot of times it's like cyst or something like that. But if you find something, get it checked out.
Absolutely.
And the reason why she found it is because she did a self-breast exam at 17. So, again, that's the difference between you getting checked out or you checking out. Seek help. Seek counseling, seek therapy, pull on your village with any type of disease or any illness that you've been diagnosed with. I really think that it takes a village to really help. I need you, you need me to survive.
Absolutely.
Like, we really need people to agree with us and for us to be able to keep it forward. Because I know after my strokes, I had 3 strokes. I was paralyzed completely on my side. If it wasn't for my sister April, who was there, for my parents who was there, my brother came up from Atlanta, who was there to guide me and push me to keep moving.
Absolutely.
Because when I left the rehab, they wanted to put me in a nursing home because I still couldn't do anything for myself. But my family said, nah, not on our watch. So I was home with them. But you need a village and you need people in your corner for whatever the reason is, whatever sickness or whatever, you really need to pull in your village. And parents really need to, because we got to be here for our kids.
Absolutely.
We can't be too afraid that we're diagnosed with something that's going to take us out and then we not been able to parent. We got to do it, stay alive just for yourself, but for your kids too.
Absolutely.
Fight the good fight.
Absolutely. You'll be surprised at how many people inbox me, like while I was, you know, because I was posting a lot. And, you know, if anybody follows my social media, my Facebook page, I make a lot of jokes and I be laughing. And during the time of me going through all of it, I was like, y'all bald head John and stuff like that, you know, just posting and just, you know, letting people know, like, you don't have to be sad, you know. Cancer doesn't always mean demise.
Right.
You don't always lose a whole bunch of weight. You know, most people, when, you know, they get cancer, you know, you see and they think chemo, you know, everybody, you know, you think about them withering away, you know, and just showing people like, hey, like, keep going. But what I was going to say was, you know, a lot of people were inboxing me like, thank you for speaking up. I'm finally going to go and get checked.
Wow.
You know, some people saying that they were still afraid to go and get checked. And I'm just like, please, I beg you, go and get checked, please.
Right.
You know, me, I don't want to say I thank God that my sister found out, but it opened my eyes.
Right.
This diagnosis woke me up. Right. And then now I have a daughter who now has to get exams and stuff when she gets, I think it starts at 25. She has to start getting ultrasounds and stuff by me being diagnosed with breast cancer. Right. So this doesn't only affect you, it affects your kids as well. You know, especially the genetic testing and understanding what is in your bloodstream, what is in your family history. Those things are so important.
Right. And I think that's good. And technology, you know, we always talk about technology. There's nothing good with technology, but technology allowed us to detect early. And I mean, that whole genetic testing is just like, wow, like you can literally see what's in your family.
Absolutely. And they have like a big binder of just all the different cancers that if it's in your genetic, if it's a genetic mutation, what cancers that carries. Wow. You know, so then you start to think, okay, well, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, that means my brother got to go and get checked.
Right.
You know, things like that. Or your son has to go and get checked. You know, but it will save your life and it'll save your kids' lives, you know.
Wow, that's powerful. So get checked. The key is get checked, get your family checked, and talk about it though. Don't be all secretive about this kind of stuff. Like, you really need to talk, because your family need to know what's going on. Your kids, we raising kids and their kids and their kids, because again, genetics is generations, right? It's in the bloodline.
Absolutely.
So if we can detect it, we can figure this thing out early, and that so you won't check out too early.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to the show, Leslie.
No problem.
Thank you. All in our technical difficulties and everything, you still was in here working.
Yes.
So thank you. Again, we are here weekly at 7 p.m. on Thursdays, Parenting with a Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janelle, where we aim and strive to bring back the nobility, responsibility, and beauty back into parenting. Parenting in any situation, whether it's trauma, it doesn't matter. Parents are necessary, point blank period. Parents are necessary. And we want to expose and encourage and help one another in this parenting journey. So tune back next week on Thursday. Thanks for having me.